And here is the comment by the man who owns the dealership. He says, it's a strange thing. Your truck, the rear axle gave out. We cannot understand how. And literally, if you'd tried to go with it, you'd have had an accident down the mountain and you'd have gone sliding over the mountain. We can't understand how the rear axle gave out. But this model would have to be shipped from us from Detroit, a brand new model. But 2 days after we had it, we had a model like that was sold about 3 months before, and that was in an accident 2 days after. Everything smashed up except the rear axle. And this was the only one that would fit your model when they brought it in. Both vehicles are under warranty. What we did, we took that rear axle, put it on yours. It's perfect. All you got to pay is the mechanic's fee, and you're ready to roll. So I'm laughing to myself how these laws are working, because when the whole thing straightened out itself, my bracelet was my shunt, so that my lower back wouldn't be broken. The vehicle, the rear axle was broken, and then this other vehicle that was damaged not too long after, everything is damaged in the accident except the rear axle and the fit. So if you want to say it's luck, fine. If you want to say it's astrology, fine. But I put it this way, my body was not the actual cost factor as assigned by the horoscope. The things that I owned and the cost to pay for it was the cost factor. So I'd rather pay for something that I'm using than to pay for a broken body, for 2 reasons. If your body is broken, you can't work till you get well to pay your bills. But if your vehicle or any object is broken, you can work to take care of that faster than having a broken body to work and try and take care of it. And so that's what the Hindu astrology does. It helps you to survive your particular conditions in your horoscope, but it doesn't prevent the conditions from existing, but just insulate you to go through it and not be broken up. Western astrology doesn't do that. They tell you these are the conditions, what to do for it, and they don't have it. Yeah.
So understand the bracelet and say we don't have the money. It's not really the money that we don't have. It's something else going on within that would say that.
Yeah.
What is that? That's just the avoiding again, the being given a certain knowledge or wisdom and not using it.
When it comes to money, there's only one law governing it. And that applies to everybody in this universe. The rich man or the poor man, they must pay their bills. Like it or not, they have incurred it. There are only 3 ways to pay a bill. Past the time, and it's already due with all the interest on top of it. On time, and you got 30 days to catch up. Ahead of time, and take 2% off. And that is the core of money. Now, the man who told me that was the richest millionaire in Canada, who owned a half of the Canadian Pacific. When I asked him what's the secret of a millionaire, I was giving a lecture at his house, and he told me that as the basis of all millionaires. He lives on his 2% that he takes off. Instead of paying it at the end of the month to somebody, he gets the 2% off by paying it ahead in 10 days. I rewarded that particular principle to read like this: I am willing to pay my bills ahead of time with some to spare and some to share, and I don't give any thought of what the number is on the bill. If I worry about the number, and I did worry about the number one time to test it, the flow stopped. the function of that principle died off. Became difficult to put it back into action. Then when I quit focusing on a number on the bill and just set the thought into motion, I'm willing to pay my bills ahead of time with some to spare and some to share. That law is valid, it works. Then you have another law to back up that law. You ever heard of Archimedes, who said he could move the universe if he had the right what? Lever, right. Okay. Let's see if we can move the universe with the right lever. Does God work for anybody?
No.
Let me hear.
No.
Good. Are you the child of God?
Yes.
Good. You positive now?
Yes.
No doubt in your mind. Good. Then you got the lever. Big Daddy, you don't work for nobody. I'm your child. I ain't working for nobody. I'm going to work for myself. I don't care what it is. But I want to pay my bills ahead of time with some to spare and some to share, and you keep that flow going. Otherwise, I ain't your child. And you ain't my daddy. That isn't a wish or a but. That's a fact of consciousness. Now, if you don't want to fulfill his role as a father to his child, then he doesn't have any reality here. But you got to come to grips with it. Go ahead.
How do you pay your bill ahead of time? No, I just don't understand how you ahead of time. The bill.
When do bills come to you? Well, as soon as it arrives, don't they have a date that it's due on the bill?
Oh, so if you're paying it before that due date, that's ahead of time.
That's what I mean.
Okay.
Now listen carefully. The third principle behind that now, I've given you the first two principles, right? If you pay something ahead of time, when would that person who bill you get their money?
Ahead of time.
What would they do with their ahead of time money if they got bills to pay?
If they pay it too. Because they pay something.
Then you have set up what is called the Domino Effect.
Oh,
And according to my friend who says he makes up all kind of laws. What's the name of that guy?
yeah.
Huh? You know the fellow that makes all those crazy laws about physics?
Murphy law. Yeah.
What is it?
Murphy.
Murphy? He likes the Domino Effect law. Pay ahead and everything roll back in thousandfold.
Adano, what if that guy doesn't do you because you pay yours ahead of time? What happens to the beings that stop so that they don't pay theirs ahead of time?
Friend,
Does that happen?
the only time you stop the flow is when you put a number in your head that's what you got to pay. If you take out the number and just focus on paying the bill ahead of time with some to spare and some to share, let me ask you now, what is a millionaire? A person who pays $1 million or a person who can pay any bill no matter what number it is? Good, then that's the right attitude because I don't worry about numbers no more. Here's a good number and then I stop the flow.
Then you're a millionaire.
Millions of numbers is what we put fixations on. Who is God? There's the principles of consciousness. We are here to apply it. If we don't apply it, then we're fooling ourselves. And who are we to blame? Your own brother said, the poor you'll have with you, but me never. And nobody understood what the heck he was talking about. The poor-minded, conscious individual will always be with you because he will be the individual that will always put a number on what he has to pay or feel he's obligated to. But me, the Christ principle, the all-inclusive, all-surrounding manifestation of the creative God in a manifested form, working through the Christ in man, doesn't have limitation anymore. Therefore, if you don't relate to it, then you're shutting yourself out from the very nature of God. Does God have a number as to his commitments in the universe? Or God is the ever unfolding, ever blooming, ever unreversed, or ever unrehearsed, ever new experience? So where is the limitation in God? There's no number now. There's no point of fixation. The consciousness is set to flow infinitely. And when we as a manifestation recognize that through our understanding, it will work. You have to put it to the test. I had to put it to the test myself. And I don't criticize all the motivation workshops that people go to and all the different success workshops they go to. In the end, when they finish their conversation, I only ask one question: how you pay your bills? And none can give me an answer. And they look at me, what do you mean? I said, you pay it on time, past the time, or ahead of time? When you get down to the nitty-gritty of it, what is money? Something that must be exchanged for a service to which you need? Do you worry about the number now, or you need the way you call it the flow? Then your option to perform a service is like your daddy. He don't work for nobody. Does God work for anybody? Good. Then through your ability to express yourself, your flow moves for you. And your sign of your zodiac is already set up. That's why they say, pick up your cross and follow me. Find your own life force, your own input energy, and it will move towards you. Solomon, your brother, said, there's a time, there's a place, and a season for everything. The time is your health, what you put in your mouth. Wrong time, they bury you. The place is where your pocketbook works for you. In the wrong location, you starve. In the right location, everybody wants to give you something. That's why they have astrocartography or charts that show your Jupiter line, and you go where your Jupiter line just for the curiosity's sake, and you'll find people coming up talking to you without you even having to look, wanting to know what you can do, what you do. That's nature's laws. I didn't make them, I had to work with them.
Is that Jupiter ascending or unation, or which one does it matter?
Jupiter line ascending is always the number one line. Then season. There is no season. I told you that in solar nutrition, there's no season. That's temperature. Temperature has to do with relationship with another human being. She's too cold for me, or she's too hot for me. So whatever the temperature is, that's how you're going to relate. So time, place, season, these are the laws of nature surrounding us, and we can function in it because we are the children of God.
Adano, can you explain the difference between relationships, the coldness and the hotness, what that means?
Well, if you have a hot person trying to relate with a cold person, what's going to happen is like throwing cold water and hot water. They're going to cool off, right? Sooner or later it can damp and dry out. So you need to relate with a person that has a similarity in energy.
Yes, I'd like to go back to what you said last night about, you mentioned something about our space brothers.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more about that? Now, I've read or I've heard or I understand that we're being monitored now. Now, do you see that as happening, or is this something that the whole world is imagining? Or the scientists or whatever, or the space cadets that go out into space, are they seeing things out there? What is it? And if so, why are they monitoring us here? Do they intend to come down here to the Earth? You stated last night that perhaps this is the case, that our space brothers will be coming back. Did you mean this literally?
Yes.
Are they really our brothers?
Yes.
Well, they just have different bodies. You said last night.
we didn't have a carbon-based body in the initial creation. In the initial creation, everyone, including all in this room, had one of the three type bodies in the initial creation. That is a silicon body. That means silicon is a predominant element in that body. Or we had sulfur, which is a predominant element. Or we had methane, which is a predominant element in it. Our biggest anguish after we were released by the creative intelligence, since we didn't volunteer, we were created without our consent. We were drafted by the creative consciousness to go out into the cosmos. And you can't have a cosmos after a human form. You have to have a cosmos before a human form. No matter what the human form is centrally set up as its chemistry, the environment must precede for it to function in and work in. So the environment was created first. All the 84 million life forms were set up already in all through the universes. Then the three forms were released to go have dominion over the universe, but not to set up no franchise or ownership. There is no way any creation can own the creator that is omnipresent in all his creation. It's not possible. So he gave this particular principle individuality, and that was the initial creation. Come, let us make man, or a manifestation. And it's us, not come, let me. So you got to understand there's a principle behind the process already, setting up this particular condition. And come, let us make it, that's a command without consent. That's an authoritative dictatorial function of authority involving drafting you out of whatever level you may think you're secure in to go face what you think you don't know about. And you only have one privilege in that particular situation. You go, multiply, have dominion. That multiplication did not imply a uterine canal process. It didn't imply ownership in dominion. It merely implied go out and work in this cosmos and build. But when they were building, because they had the power to speak the spoken word and command the atoms, and that's the power of dominion over the universe, there's no other power, no other life form can do it. That power is inherent in the initial body to apply the spoken word over the atom. But we realize that that power doesn't produce permanency, because residue is set up in that type of process. If you wanted to eat an apple, what would you say right away? Let's say, pick one of the three bodies. All of us, pick one of the three bodies to be in. Let's say silicon body, and you wanted to eat an apple. What would you say?
My reaction to the apple?
No, just
what I would say. The apple tastes very good.
Hmm?
The apple tastes real good.
No, you want to eat it. You haven't got it yet.
Before the apple. Before I could eat the apple.
Yeah, the apple. What do we say? Apple, right?
Oh, apple.
Good. It's in your hand. You didn't plant it now. You didn't wait for it to grow. And you didn't harvest it. And you didn't protect it against no insect. You said apple. And in 2 seconds, in your palm of your hand, you have the finished product. Now, have you eaten an apple? And know that when you finish eating an apple, what have you got left?
Oh, seeds.
Yeah. Go and listen to what you're saying, because I'm going to throw it right back now. Where you think you're going to put that stuff?
There is no place to
Don't put it in my spot.
But if you were able,
There's not a single person in this room will allow you to put it in their spot, because you occupy your totality of your conscious beingness in your own point of reference to the atomic nature of your truth. And you manifested the apple at your command request. You didn't plant the tree. It was there already waiting. It wasn't being cared for by you or anyone. You're in a total self-productive, imminent environment to the spoken word. There is no residue, and therefore you will be left with residue. And what would you do with the residue? Because where would you throw it? That would be your first real anguish as a being manifesting your need by command over the atom through the spoken voice and having no way to eliminate the excess. You would have to design the apple to be totally non-refuse-less. And you couldn't design it because you weren't given that power by the Creator to design a non-refuse apple by the spoken voice. So,
I don't understand if you were able to materialize the apple, why would you not be able to materialize the residue?
where are you going to materialize it from?
Well, I don't know, because you materialized it. You were able to materialize it.
You materialize the apple. Do you think you can dematerialize the residue?
Why not?
How?
No, I'm asking
Well,
why-
it comes out of elements the same way you materialize it. It had to come from the molecules, the atoms, and whatever. So you just break it down and send it back in.
How you know to do that?
Well, if you knew how to materialize it, you
You
must
didn't know how to materialize it. You were only given dominion over this over the atom. If you say to the mountain, move, the mountain will move. Can you put the mountain back after you move it? By the time you move the mountain with the spoken word, do you realize there are three things you have already done to the earth? With your showing off this, that you have the power to speak the spoken word and have the conviction, like the size of a mustard seed, move mountain, and the mountain actually moves. To impress who? Who are you going to impress with the moving mountain now? A bunch of who's, right? Good. Well, what you got there is an earthquake that's going to tear away the whole earth now, or that location, once that mountain moves. Then a lot of things will start to follow, because you're breaking up every precept function of nature within the fixation of its own laws, just to prove what? Your own personal fixation. God knew what he was doing. He tricked us because he wanted us to learn not to own or to feel left out, but to obey. But we ain't ready to obey for two reasons. He wants us to rebel in order to forgive, in order to obey, in order to volunteer. But that was his own plan, all set up long before we ever were put into a human form, be it silicon, sulfur, or methane. Otherwise, he wouldn't provide this carbon-based form for the resolution. And carbon is stronger than any element in the 144 elements that you can make a body out of and give it dominance. This one is the only one. He knew doggone well what he was doing when he put it together, and he wanted to find out for sure if he can test his integrity within his own individuality to rise above his own fixation of egotism and generate propriety out of service. But he must give a form every advantage to be a brute in order to be man by its own mistakes. It's very powerful laws set up by nature. And so our first creation was like that. We were called builders. We came here and muck up. Now, we have to clean it up. We fought among ourselves because you couldn't throw your residue in my place and I could throw my residue. So that began the wars between ourselves. and we became fixated, so we were called sons of light and sons of darkness. Bunch of baloney. It only means if I relate to my higher consciousness in a unified state without emphasizing my ego, I am pure light, pure beingness. If I place emphasis on my ego and didn't look at my unified consciousness, I was darkness. I was denying my integrity and unity with everything. And so that was the battle between the two. So they labeled the two beings Deva and Asura. Deva was one integrated with the pure light and didn't focus upon his ego. Asura was one who refused to let go of his ego. And they battled with the same prayer or mantra, throwing it back and forth at each other. And finally, they said, the Asura mispronounced his mantra and blew himself apart, ending the first creation, or Star Wars. All of them blew themselves apart into their particular conditions that they're in. Now, they set up an atomic emanation throughout the entire cosmos. Their viciousness, put it that way, got hold of them. Creative intelligence is not going to wipe the slate off. Creative intelligence is looking at the whole show and says, now, okay, you fellas, clean up after your mock-up. It's like a bunch of kids. The father and the mama ain't going to feel horrified because the kids take all the plate off the breakfast table and all the food and throw it on the floor. They think they're going to up and spank them for that? Okay, you muck it up, clean it up. So, if you want to eat another meal, you're going to clean up. If you want to function in this cosmos. So, the compensation was, how do we clean up? So, we are given the second creation, which they call an Adam and Eve creation, a carbon-based body. That's right. No, into the carbon-based body. That's just a erroneous way of writing it. He then left the silicon, sulfur, and methane, and came down to the carbon-based body to make restitution or correct his mistakes. The carbon-based body has two functions. One function, it acts like a charcoal, blocking light. The next function, it will transcend the charcoal and allow light to shine through it, but it will become permanent. It's a diamond. So a diamond is a carbon by virtue of increasing the heat range. It passes through the charcoal level into the diamond level. And that is how come they call it the immortal body. Today when they examine non-decomposing bodies, the predominant evidence is in the carbon. They're seeing it now when they study the skin under the microscope, that it isn't really breaking down, that the carbon content is more towards the frequency of a diamond. And the living person, if he's living, this frequency is to that level.
So then, Adano, getting back to this gentleman's original question, this whole process going from silicon, sulfur, methane, and ending with the carbon base,
Yeah.
you have these other beings in these other bodies that must be watching this whole process.
Well, I'm not saying they're not, because what? Who volunteered now? Do you think everybody volunteered?
Only the most rebellious ones.
The most vicious, rebellious ones had to make the first attempt to volunteer because they were the ones who were adamant, fixated in their, what? Individuality. And they are the ones that come down and say, okay, Daddy, we made mistake, it's our home, we didn't have no other home to go to. We owe it to ourselves, we gotta clean up. And we plunged down to come in to work with it. But Daddy didn't tell us this, that when you come down in this carbon-based body, that the charcoal level has this particular condition. One, you have to use the uterine canal for birth, son or daughter. Two, your memory as to what power you had with your mouth is temporarily turned down and the ability to see through the cosmos with your eyes will be partially available to you. That, and the third thing is you don't have any way to remember what you are or who you are when you go through that process. You must take your chance, and you must work out all your viciousness in that level at the uterine canal by becoming a sperm and moving to an ovum. This process now, by way of the animal kingdom, must be the final test of your nature. First you came, we made you right off like that. You didn't go through the animal process of sex. Now you abused it. You must work your way out of it through that animal process. It's not a bad process, but this is the process that's set up for you to temporarily suspend all relationships with your higher consciousness. We come in the carbon-based body. We have to go up the uterine canal, and every trick in the book is pulled by the sperm to get to the ovum. And if you look at it under a microscope, you will see it, that everyone that is born is a winner. A loser cannot be born. So the viciousness is phased off. But many of us can live with the idea we're losers, can live with the idea we still got to be vicious, when in actuality we're all born winners now. We have proven where our emotional nature can encounter the shutdown of the memory and go through the process to be born as a human being. Next, you're born in this environment and have this temporary shutdown of your past memory of what you are. You have to pick up by service through aches and pains. You can't manipulate the atoms with your mouth. You must do the job now to grow the tree, take care of the tree, wait for the fruit to mature, eat the fruit, and plant again. No more something for nothing attitude, materializing it and creating a war with it. You've got to respect it. Now, we see, even in today, the biggest problem bugging society is the residue all over the world piling up. Even when Jesus came and he fed the 4,000 and the 5,000, what was the biggest issue that he recorded? How many baskets of bones and crumbs they pick up? Why would they write a thing like that if they didn't want to make an issue about it? You could have forget all about that. What they pick up, bones or crumbs. But who would have believed that they really ate bread or fish if they didn't make any reference to bones and crumbs? They might have just said they were victims of what? Hallucination, because Jesus pulled off the great super trick of hypnosis over their eyes and everybody thought they ate, when they may not even have eaten anything. That doesn't say it doesn't exist. There are a lot of sleight of hand tricks going on like that. But the genuine reality does exist. The genuine reality is the residue. Do you have any actual residue of picking up bones and crumbs? And if you pick up after 4,000 people have finished eating, the way it's written, it sounds like they took it all up in a few hours, right? Baloney. I was at the Woodstock festival. They had 1,000 people, and they didn't have no bones there. All they had was paper and cups. Took them 2 days to clean up the doggone place. Just the paper cups off the ground. So when you come and tell me about bones and crumbs, it took them a heck of a long time, and they really put out time to get it to clean up. So that would leave the impression of what they're doing in these laws. Now, we have to go through this process. We have other brothers and sisters who are watching on. They don't want to surrender their particular integrity. You guys are responsible for this whole doggone thing. You clean up first. We're going to watch and see if you really mean what you say. Because it's you guys who started off. Okay, here we are, we're down here. And they're watching. But what is happening is this. In the last 1900 years, over the many thousands of years that they've watched us correcting ourselves, there's approximately 366 carbon-based bodies that don't break down under any circumstance. Mastery of life over death has been finally accomplished, and they are in the time frame of the elements, and they're facing them with or without spaceships.
Without spaceship.
We don't need to go to the Pleiades where they come from, or the other areas of the universe with spaceships once you master the carbon-based body.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand the unified field?
Mm-hmm.
You understand the equation of the unified field?
What energy equals?
Energy is equal to the mass times the velocity of light squared. All right, 186,000 miles a second.
You're already there.
How many? It only takes you 90 minutes to go from here to the Pleiades at 186,000 miles a second. Nothing to the highly evolved carbon-based body. Now, speed of light is 186,000 miles a second visible. The speed of darkness is 187,000 miles. That doesn't say the mass is absent. It's invisible at one speed. Invisible at another speed, but it's solid. That's laws of physics. Researchers are now finding out. We haven't really tapped anything as yet. We are on the way to discover what we are for the first time, and could really lock into something that could wring out and straighten out our cosmos from our so-called fixated religious philosophical mistakes, and really get down to brotherhood of man. But we got to go through the process. We got to make the mistakes. Nobody's going to change it. We got to do it ourselves. So we're having the opportunity of a carbon-based body to arrive at what is called conscious immortality, given to us by the creative intelligence, because he is the father, we are the children. That's our inheritance from him. To him that overcometh, I will not send forth a second time, but I'll make you a pillar in the house of the Lord. This is your promise. This is your opportunity. We goofed up. We got to come back and clean up. They're watching. Over 366 people have achieved it already in one group, let alone in other religious groups. They're constantly emerging. So they are seeing that the carbon-based body is the genuine avenue, and the opportunity is there. It can be done by service. So before the century is over and the birth of the Aquarian cycle, they want to come in, but they're not trusting, because why? They don't know how sincere we are. They're seeing us doing it, but they're still not believing we're sincere enough. They would like to experiment, like a doctor would like to experiment with a bunch of guinea pigs to see if he can crossbreed and get something better. So they would like to crossbreed their silicon body with a carbon body or with a sulfur body, and see how they can work out without having to really spend all that time in the uterine canal. They've seen how many people have avoided wanting to have children in a carbon-based body of the anguish, fixations and different things. They're watching it. They're trying to get in on you by promising you in a carbon-based body how to look at time that you can't control and avoid anguish, so that you may surrender a part of your mechanism to them, so they can use it as a telephone booth. They'll do anything to find out if we're genuine or false towards them. And you can't blame them. But they can only take advantage of a non-initiate. They can't take advantage of the initiate, because the initiate is the only one who understands the carbon-based body, the purpose of it, the intent of the other bodies, why he had it and had to abuse it and come into the carbon-based body and then make his own restitution by getting behind the wheel and quit being a passenger and quit the only disease in the universe or the only sin in the universe, since there are no sin and there are no disease. The only ignorance in the universe is ATG. You know what ATG is? Attention getting syndromes. It's worse than AIDS. The AIDS is only the deficiency of your immunity, but the attention getting syndrome is so bad, it's unbelievable. We all want to get attention from Big Daddy. Even Brother Jesus, you know, when he went down into hell and he arise, they said he went and sit where? He ascended into heaven and sit.
At the
Right hand of God's
side.
Father.
Why didn't he sit in the lap of his father? That'd be great ATG. Well, he was smart. He didn't want to be a victim of ATG, so he sat where?
Right hand side.
Good, congratulations. But tell me of a child seeing his daddy for the first time, what would he try to do? Well, that's ATG. But that doesn't say it's a bad attitude or not. But this is what we're looking at. Once the person has realized the inner integrity and the unity of the Spirit as one, then there's no more ATG. That's why Jesus said, not my will be done, but thy will be done. And Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He had already got rid of his ATGs. So, in true respect for the cosmic form, the right side is the ascending side and the left side is the descending side. Christ's principle would give credibility to the right side of the creative consciousness. And so when he said he ascended into heaven and sat on the right side, that's the credibility of the mechanism, how it operates from inside. The ascending side is the right side and the descending side is the left side, but the descending side is not a bad side. It's just that this is the way it operates from right to left. And once you understand that process inside of you, you relive your true identity in the carbon-based body. But the carbon-based body has reached its fullest integrity for the first time, where it doesn't break down no more and is permanent, everlasting, as the creative intelligence intended it to be. So, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. That was the command. You don't have a choice. Go out and act. Do what I'm telling you, till you act it out and find out I have a purpose. And the Word was made flesh to go through all kind of charades and finally dwells in man. Where's it dwelling? You heard it just now. Where's it dwelling?
Now, in flesh,
Good.
carbon-based.
Good. So you and I are the only forms, apart from the other three forms that we had available to us. This form is the permanent residing place for the creative intelligence. That's why it will be permanent and it will never break down no more. The chemistry validates it. Carbon is stronger than silicon. It cuts it. Like when it becomes a diamond, you cut glass with it. But have you ever seen a rotten glass? Not possible, right? But you'll see a weak glass in reference to a diamond. But you've never seen a rotten diamond either. But you've never seen a rotten glass either. But between the two strengths of integrity, the diamond is permanent and outlasts the glass in strength of integrity. But as to say longevity, they're both the same. So there are trying to come in, and they're technically ahead of us, but we are integrity ahead of them. You know what integrity is? We have mastered pain by enduring it without complaint and rise above it through selfless service. Therefore, to that quality, the Father takes joy in being in a carbon-based body and not in a silicon, sulfur, or methane body. And so our brother Jesus came to show that the Christ principle is all